30. So Solon, having left his native country for this reason and for the sake of seeing various lands, came to Amasis in Egypt, and also to Croesus at Sardis. Having there arrived, he was entertained as a guest by Croesus in the king's palace. And afterwards, on the third or fourth day, at the bidding of Croesus his servants led Solon round to see his treasuries. And they showed him all things, how great and magnificent they were. And after he had looked upon them all and examined them as he had occasion, Croesus asked him as follows. Athenian guest, much report of thee has come to us, both in regard to thy wisdom and thy wanderings, how that in thy search for wisdom thou hast traversed many lands to see them. Now therefore a desire has come upon me to ask thee whether thou hast seen any whom thou deemest to be of all men the most happy. This he asked supposing that he himself was the happiest of men. But Solon, using no flattery but the truth only, said, Yes, O king, Telos the Athenian. And Croesus, marveling at that which he said, asked him earnestly, In what respect dost thou judge Telos to be the most happy? And he said, Telos, in the first place, living while his native state was prosperous, had sons fair and good and saw from all of them children begotten and living to grow up. And secondly he had what with us is accounted wealth, and after his life or most glorious end. For when a battle was fought by the Athenians at Eleusis against the neighboring people, he brought up supports and routed the foe and there died by a most fair death. And the Athenians buried him publicly where he fell, and honored him greatly. 31. So when Solon had moved Croesus to inquire further by the story of Telos, recounting how many points of happiness he had, the king asked again whom he had seen proper to be placed next after this man, supposing that he himself would certainly obtain at least the second place. But he replied, Cleobis and Biton. For these, who were of Argos by race, possessed a sufficiency of wealth and, in addition to this, strength of body such as I shall tell. Both equally had won prizes in the games, and moreover the following tale is told of them. There was a feast of Hera among the Argives and it was by all means necessary that their mother should be borne in a car to the temple. But since their oxen were not brought up in time from the field, the young men, barred from all else by lack of time, submitted themselves to the yoke and drew the wain, their mother being borne by them upon it. And so they brought it on for 45 furlongs, and came to the temple. Then after they had done this and had been seen by the assembled crowd, there came to their life a most excellent ending. And in this the deity declared that it was better for man to die than to continue to live. For the Argive men were standing round and extolling the strength of the young men, while the Argive women were extolling the mother to whose lot it had fallen to have such sons. And the mother being exceedingly rejoiced both by the deed itself and by the report made of it, took her stand in front of the image of the goddess and prayed that she would give to Cleobis and Biton her sons, who had honored her greatly, that gift which is best for man to receive. And after this prayer, when they had sacrificed and feasted, the young men lay down to sleep within the temple itself, and never rose again, but were held bound in this last end. And the Argives made statues in the likeness of them and dedicated them as offerings at Delphi, thinking that they had proved themselves most excellent. 32. Thus Solon assigned the second place in respect of happiness to these. And Croesus was moved to anger and said, Athenian guest, hast thou then so cast aside our prosperous state as worth nothing, that thou dost prefer to us even men of private station? And he said, Croesus, thou art inquiring about human fortunes of one who well knows that the deity is altogether envious and apt to disturb our lot. For in the course of long time a man may see many things which he would not desire to see, and suffer also many things which he would not desire to suffer. The limit of life for a man I lay down at 70 years. And these 70 years give 25,200 days, not reckoning for any intercalated month. Then if every other one of these years shall be made longer by 1 month, that the seasons may be caused to come round at the due time of the year, the intercalated months will be in number 35 besides the 70 years. And of these months the days will be 1,050. Of all these days, being in number 26,250, which go to the 70 years, one day produces nothing at all which resembles what another brings with it. Thus then, O Croesus, man is altogether a creature of accident. As for thee, I perceive that thou art both great in wealth and king of many men, but that of which thou didst ask me I cannot call thee yet, until I learn that thou hast brought thy life to a fair ending. For the very rich man is not at all to be accounted more happy than he who has but his subsistence from day to day, unless also the fortune go with him of ending his life well in possession of all things fair. For many very wealthy men are not happy, while many who have but a moderate living are fortunate. And in truth the very rich man who is not happy has two advantages only as compared with the poor man who is fortunate, whereas this latter has many as compared with the rich man who is not happy. The rich man is able better to fulfill his desire, and also to endure a great calamity if it fall upon him. Whereas the other has advantage over him in these things which follow. He is not indeed able equally with the rich man to endure a calamity or to fulfill his desire, but these his good fortune keeps away from him, while he is sound of limb, free from disease, untouched by suffering, the father of fair children and himself of comely form. And if in addition to this he shall end his life well, he is worthy to be called that which thou seekest, namely a happy man. But before he comes to his end it is well to hold back and not to call him yet happy but only fortunate. Now to possess all these things together is impossible for one who is mere man, just as no single land suffices to supply all things for itself. But one thing it has and another it lacks, and the land that has the greatest number of things is the best. So also in the case of a man, no single person is complete in himself, for one thing he has and another he lacks. But whosoever of men continues to the end in possession of the greatest number of these things and then has a gracious ending of his life, he is by me accounted worthy, O king, to receive this name. But we must of everything examine the end and how it will turn out at the last. For to many God shows but a glimpse of happiness and then plucks them up by the roots and overturns them. 33. Thus saying he refused to gratify Croesus, who sent him away from his presence holding him in no esteem, and thinking him utterly senseless in that he passed over present good things and bade men look to the end of every matter. 34. After Solon had departed, a great retribution from God came upon Croesus, probably because he judged himself to be the happiest of all men. First there came and stood by him a dream, which showed to him the truth of the evils that were about to come to pass in respect of his son. Now Croesus had 2 sons, of whom one was deficient, seeing that he was deaf and dumb, while the other far surpassed his companions of the same age in all things. And the name of this last was 8 Eyes. As regards this 8 Eyes then, the dream signified to Croesus that he should lose him by the blow of an iron spear point. And when he rose up from sleep and considered the matter with himself, he was struck with fear on account of the dream. And first he took for his son a wife. And whereas his son had been wont to lead the armies of the Lydians, he now no longer sent him forth anywhere on any such business. And the javelins and lances and all such things which men use for fighting he conveyed out of the men's apartments and piled them up in the inner bedchambers, for fear lest something hanging up might fall down upon his son.